All right, sixth graders, happy St. Patrick's Day. Today we're looking at equivalent ratios. So, of course, what are they? Ratios that name the same relationship are called equivalent, or equal to, right? The same, they're equivalent ratios. So remember, just like with equivalent fractions, equivalent ratios can be found by scaling up. So you would be multiplying both numbers by the same number, or scaling down. Now, scaling down is what we did when we were simplifying, because scaling down you would be dividing. We picked a very specific number to divide by, the greatest common factor, but scaling down you would be dividing both numbers by the same number. So when we're multiplying, we're scaling up. When we're dividing, we're scaling down. So here is an example. If Lucinda mixed 6 cups of apple juice with 4 cups of cranberry juice. We're going to write 3 equivalent ratios for the amount of apple juice to cranberry juice. Well, first, our ratio right now stands at apple is 6, cranberry is 4. So if we're writing 3 equivalent ratios, well, we could scale down, right? These are both even, so I would suggest dividing by 2. This would simplify them, wouldn't they? Because 2 is also the greatest common factor. We don't always have to use the greatest common factor if they have another factor that's in common when we're writing our equivalent fractions. So 3 to 2. We could also scale up, couldn't we? So we could multiply it by the same thing. You can pick any number. Say you're going to have a few people over, so you want to multiply them both by 3. That gives you 18. 4 times 3 is 12. So here was 1, there was 2. What if you were inviting the whole neighborhood over and you wanted to scale up that juice quite a bit? Maybe you could multiply by like 7. You're gonna I don't even know. I was going to say quadruple, but that would be 4 times. I don't know what the word would be for 7 times. So here, 6 times 7 is 42. 4 times 7 is 28. So all of these, including the original, were equivalent ratios. So if I wanted you to write 2 equivalent ratios for each given ratio, you might have, say, 5 is to 30, and you might see 2 to 7. If you see that right away they have a common factor, you could start by dividing, right? You could divide them both by 5. So if I divided by 5, I would have 1 is to 30 divided by 5 is 6. Then I could also multiply, right? Maybe just by 2. 5 times 2 would be 10. 30 times 2 would be 60. So there's 2 more equivalent ratios. What about when I don't have common factors? I would just start with multiplying, right? So if I multiplied by 2, I would have 4 to 14. If I multiplied by 3, I would have 6 to 21, right? Now sometimes you'll have to find values. So if I gave you some missing things, like, 1 to 4, and I wanted to know if I had 5 of that top number, how many would I need in the bottom? So I'm asking, what did I do to the 1 to get to 5? So I multiplied by 5. So then I'm going to have to do the same thing to the bottom. Well, 4 times 5 is 20, right? So that would give you that. What if I had a ratio of 7 to 3 and I wanted to know if I had a 56, what would I need down here? Well, I know 7 times 8 was 56, so that's what I have to do to the bottom as well, which I know is 24. Okay, now you might have to go the other way, right? You might not know the first one. Something out of 5, something to 5, I should say, is equivalent to 18 to 10. So here we multiplied. So to get from 10 to 5, we would have to divide by 2. So if we were dividing 18 by 2, we would have 9. Do you see you're asking what you did to get to here so that you can figure out what to do to the top? All right, even though sometimes you're kind of working backwards. So if we're looking at some real applications of this, so if we had a ratio of students to chaperones, so students to chaperones, and we had to have, if we said on the field trip we had 15 to 2, and we had 60 students, so if there are 60 students, how many chaperones? So we're kind of writing it 15 to 2. If we have 60 students, that has to be equivalent to 60 to what? What do we have to do to the 15 to get 60? Well, 60 divided by 15 is 4. So when I multiply this by 4, I would need 8 chaperones. So you're just kind of filling in some of those blanks there, okay? So some of them you'll have to check to see if they're equivalent. If I gave you 3 to 7 and 9 to 28, well, 3 times 3 is 9, so 7 times 3 would not be 28, it would be 21, so this would be a no. Those aren't equivalent. What if I had 24 to 72 and 4 to 12? Are these equivalent? Well, if I divided 24 by 6, I would get 4. So whatever I do to one, I have to do to the other. 72 divided by 6 does equal 12, so that would be a yes. So you see, we are going to be using these ratios in ways to figure things out, but sometimes we need to understand what makes them equivalent and check whether we are right or not. So remember, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom, or whatever you do to one, you do to the other. So if you're dividing them both, you have to make sure you're doing the same thing to both. If you're multiplying them both, make sure you're multiplying by that same number. All right? Have a fantastic St. Patrick's Day.